Well, that didn't exactly work out with the pause. The thing shut itself off. I was going to use Zoom, but I'm using that camera thing. Um, so yes, I got the coffee. But I said I was going to talk about a couple of the other songs by Yes. Um, I think I'm just going to mention one more. I already said Owner of a Lonely Heart, but you see, that was many years later. And time in from some perspectives, it's not exactly linear consecutive. It kind of goes over here and it's over there, and your memories are different points in time, and so switch around here. And as I told you, somehow they knew that I was going to figure this thing out, or things were going to happen to me about the time of my 24th birthday, which I probably said too many times. But there's another song I want to talk about, and again, they've never come clean about what it actually means. And that was an album that they put out in the fall of 1974. That was a bit strange even for them, and that album was called Relayer. And that's when I studied in the Soviet Union. But I don't think I've gotten into it. I mean, I've mentioned I majored in Russian studies and that kind of thing. Um, Nixon had opened things up, President Nixon, and also opened things up in with China, which later on I taught English in China. So, but I was a good Russian student, so I had to take a test. So I got accepted into this program. That they would only allow a semester because they wanted to get as many students in and out of there. So I didn't get to study for the whole school year, but I got my I got my experience there, a full experience, because I could speak Russian, and I went out and I met a lot of Russians. And in those days, nobody spoke English in the Soviet Union, except a couple of the tour guides that we had. Everybody else, nobody spoke English because they felt people would learn Russian anyway, and it is sort of a difficult language. But anyway, I went over there, and after a while, I mean, when I first got there, it wasn't so bad, but after a while, because that city, Leningrad, St. Petersburg, is very high up latitude wise, it starts getting dark in October. And what was actually pretty good weather and enjoying thing, and we took this catamaran. I think it was to the Tsar Peter's summer palace. I think it was a place that's very tourist oriented, but there weren't a lot of tourists because this was the Soviet Union. So me and my classmates, I and my classmates went over after classes and went to this place. But at the beginning of October, because we got there in September, at the beginning of October, um, it started to get dark, and that's when it just started to hit home to me how bad it was in the Soviet Union, and I was really reacting to it, how bad things were. I'd have to go buy things, and because it was a controlled economy and very military oriented, there was very little, very little. And for an American, could just go to the store and get anything. It was really difficult. I had to buy some shoes; they fell apart. My glasses broke, and they didn't have the machine that could take the lens to figure out the prescription. In those days, I had thick glasses. I've had eye surgery since then. Um, and just many other things, and I started reacting to it, and I was very angry about a lot of things. Well, that's what, for the people who know, yes, that's what the Gates of Delirium is because they were somehow picking up at whatever point in time, and I'm not really clear on that. It's almost like they knew it before I experienced it. If I see the date on the album, if you know the lyrics as I know them, they were actually picking up on the fact that I was reacting to the Soviet Union in a very negative way. Now, I don't want to put the Russians down because the Russians tried to be very nice and everybody tried to be friendly, but this that system was not working, and I can tell you that because I experienced it. But I did go, and the only goal I had before I went over there, because I didn't really care about the Russian. I didn't have any intention of using it in my life. I ended up being a volunteer with Jewish Family Services in my city, Richmond. I already told you Richmond, for a little more than 2.5 years in the late 70s to 81, which then I moved to Houston to get some kind of career going in software. So I can still speak Russian very well. I'll say I can. I can't prove it. Я не могу доказать это сейчас. I just said I can't prove that right now in Russian. Anyway, so I was reacting to it very negatively, and that's what the Gates of Delirium is. That was their reaction. Now, what I understand is what I've never read this, but I've heard it claimed that what they said is that it's about War and Peace. No, it is not about War and Peace. I've read War and Peace. I wonder if they have. Then what would you expect from them? No. The lyrics are definitely, they somehow picked up on the, if you a lot of people, especially Yes fans, don't seem to be aware of much of anything, and I mean exactly what I said, especially metaphysics. They picked up on the astral plane that I was having a very negative reaction to the Soviet Union, and that is correct. But one thing I did make out of the experience is I met a lot of Russians, and I spoke Russian all the time with them because, as I said, they didn't speak English. And so I got from them firsthand, because I had majored in Russian studies, and I got verification from Russians firsthand that what I had studied in the books about life in the Soviet Union and the government was correct. I'm not trying to put Russians down. That's not what I'm talking about. Again, our hosts were very generous, and everything was taken care of. I chose to have experiences where I could kind of get away from the everything taken care of just to see what it was like, and those were pretty negative. Just give me a flavor of what that place was like, to say nothing of what I was seeing anyway. So that just shows you, that's another example of, The Owner of a Lonely Heart, which I already talked about, which came out 9 years after 74, that there's something going on with me. Again, I'm not saying this so that you'll think whatever you might think I want you to think about me, and boy, see, they're famous and I want to be famous. No, I wish it wasn't true. And I broke the bond with them some time ago, and that's another discussion. So I still do believe that I am the chosen one, and that I will pass judgment, but I don't want anything to do with them. And again, I'm to explain all of this, because the truth is, I like their, even after I figured this thing out, and the first year was awful, and they did that to me deliberately, by the way. Yeah, what Yes did to me is, after, because they knew, as I told you, they knew that I was going to figure out this thing about the time of my 24th birthday. They had known it years in advance, as had other rock stars from the 70s that knew by the thing that I told you about, where I listened to the music intensely. Remember I told you about that? And they knew about me. In fact, I just listened to one of those groups. I just listened to a song from 78, but as I told you, I don't want to I'm not a name dropper. I'm just staying away from that. I have to mention these two bands, Yes and Gentle Giant, which I've barely even gotten into it about Gentle Giant. Which they broke up in 1980. I like their last album quite a bit, actually. It was called Civilian. Again, about me, because I am the Gentle Giant, and I don't know whether I said that. But that's what I had figured out in 1977. But what Yes did to me after, and there's no question in my mind they did this intentionally, is after I figured this thing out, then I had to start dealing with it. And the first year was, I mean, it was so bad that I can't put it into words. And it's funnier. I'm not sure what the word is. I wasn't going along and like I was going to be some person. I think I've already told you I was a nobody, and I had very small expectations about my life. Now I got to go and be that person, Sandy Felton, that people, because people see what they see, and I got to go do this and that and the other just to support myself and try to figure out, no, maybe the world's going to come to an end one day, and I'm chosen. And what Yes did deliberately is they wanted to humiliate me, and to they did succeed to an extent, because if you again, if you can get beyond your preconceptions that this can't possibly be true and it must be diluted and all this stuff, if you can get beyond that, and just for a second before you judge me, put yourself in my position. I'm a nobody. I'm quite mediocre in many senses. I am the savior, and it's just true. People believe it or they don't believe it. And now I got to go deal with this stuff. I got to go, as I've said, now I got to go make a living. I had some interviews for my computer stuff, but my heart really wasn't in it. I got at least one offer, and I turned it down because I had figured this thing out. And what's going on here? And so the first year was, it was awful. I'm past the 10 minutes, but I want to finish this particular part of the story. Then I got to try to do the rest of it, which is that I'm now in 1978, and I'm figuring more and more out about a lot of things. A lot of groups looked at their albums. Oh, they know too. And that's when I was realizing that a lot of these rock stars from the 70s know who I am. And one of the groups, you can go figure it out, put out a song, and the song said, "We are the people of the roundabout." Now, I'm not going to tell you what group it is. I already said that. You can go figure it out. If you can figure it out, you will know that that group, in addition to Yes and Gentle Giant, and many others that I'm not going to tell you their names, you will know that that group knows the story. And I'm getting to 12 minutes, so I'm already 2 minutes past my limit. But that will get us to 78. That will get to my life at 78. Now, how I'm going to even tell it, because I'm this is taking longer than I wanted it to, but it's just very complicated, and anyway, I'll stop this one and we will go from there.